Hello everyone, Theatos here, and now it's the time once again to have some fun with our little 386SX Labrat. Yeah, this is the one with the Shark RC 2016 chipset. Now, last time we tested here the 386SX and the 486SXLC2 CPUs, however the overclocking results were a bit underwhelming. The 386SX only overclocked up to 50 MHz. However, it was impossible to post at 50, so basically I had to set it up first at 40, post, and then change on the fly the jumpers for 50 MHz. The 486SXLC2, even though it's rated for 50 MHz, in the end only managed to do 40 here. So yeah, all this was quite unsatisfactory. So today with this video I'm coming to you with more CPUs and more overclocking results. First of all, I replaced this Am386SX CPU with another chip. Then here we have the Intel Ku386SX CPU marked for 40 MHz. Then here we have the 486SLC. This is a Cyrix class CPU like the 486SXLC, but with only 1 KB of level 1 cache. This specific chip, okay, it's marked at 33 MHz. And then finally I have again the 486SXLC2, but this one is a bit different package. So let's now have a look at the hardware that I'm gonna use today. And yeah, first of all we have our modded Ser 386SS motherboard. Not much has changed since last time. So the key points are first of all the any clock device that allows me to set up the CPU at any speed. Then okay, we have these pin headers that allows me to easily install different CPUs. Then of course we have my custom 4 MB SIMs, so 4 of them for total 16 MB. The thing is, okay, this is a 16-bit motherboard, so this can run with only 2 of these for total of 8 MB, but for full performance you have to really occupy all 4 slots. Then also okay, here the 5 volt, I drive them with my custom power supply. This time I didn't go too high, I just stayed at 5.1 volts, and this in general helped a bit. Now there is another point that I mentioned last time about this motherboard, but it's not actually accurate. It is regarding this OP connection here on the back of the board. Now this thing, you definitely need to have this closed when you are using a Cyrix CPU. And on my previous video I thought that this is the flash signal, but actually this is just the gate A20 signal from the keyboard controller. Don't get me wrong, this is definitely needed here, but the thing is this is not the flash. The flash signal looks like it's not generated by this chipset or motherboard. This is not a big issue. The CPU will either way work with the barb setting, and on this motherboard barb or flash doesn't make any big difference. Now the graphics card is the same as last time also. This is one of the fastest, if not the fastest, is a VGA card, so nothing new here. Now with the BIOS there are a few changes. I actually got the latest AMI BIOS for this chipset and I did my own modifications. And first of all, here on the advanced CMOS setup, we now have every possible setting enabled. And yeah, these are as before my optimal settings. One thing I need to mention here is this write wait state option, as it is not as straightforward as it looks. By the way, did you know that if you press F1 you can get more information for some of these settings? So here the one is described as pulse width mode 2 and the other is read after write 1 wait. Yeah, not very clear. I have here as an optimal setting the 0 wait 2 CLK2 and this is the setting I use to do all my benchmarks. However, if you set this to 1W, there were some small benefits here and there. In the end the difference was very small, so it doesn't matter. Now the other thing with this modded BIOS is that I modded some BIOS routines that detect the CPU clock. So here no matter what it will detect as 40 MHz the CPU. The problem is that this BIOS has too many checks that set a different setting based on the clock, and this caused me some problems. One example is with the 486SXLC CPUs, where the motherboard, if it detects that the clock is below 25 MHz, it automatically tries to enable the clock doubling, and this basically freezes the PC before it even posts. And so with this BIOS, the 486SXLC2 will post no matter what is the CPU clock. So if you want a copy of this modded BIOS, you can find it in the link on the description. And yeah, in the future I will come back to you with a new video regarding how to make these mods. I'm actually also preparing an automatic tool to do so. So if you don't want to miss that, okay, just subscribe. So now it's time to check our 386SX CPUs. Yeah, this is the AMD and the Intel one. The AMD is now a new chip, so let's go with this. Good. The clock is set at 40 MHz, and let's try. Yeah, it posts just fine. This is same as before. But now let's try 50 MHz. And it doesn't post. It's exactly the same as before. So two different AMD 486SX chips fail the same way on this motherboard. Now if I start it like that it is something below 40 MHz, it will post. And if I go on the fly and set another jumper, it goes faster. This is 50. This is 53.3. So it will even work at 53.3, but it will never post above 40. But then okay, let's try now the Intel CPU. I'm now at 53.3. Okay. And yeah, this immediately posts at 53.3. So in the end I did a bit more tests here, and with some extra cooling I was able to run this Intel CPU stable at 55 MHz. The AMD could not do 55, and okay, at 55 of course my memories are a bit on their limit, so I had to play a lot with this, try different sims and change the slots all the time until I found one configuration that was stable. So the surprising conclusion here is that the Intel CPU clocked better than the AMD one. Now regarding the posting problems, I don't think really this is a CPU fault. This is mostly the crappy two-layer design of this board. We will also see a lot of problems like that with the other CPUs. So now here are my results from the 55 MHz 486SX. And yeah, the BIOS is detecting as 40 because of the mode. But then of course in all benchmark it is reported correctly as 55. So here first of all we have check it. And the CPU score is 31.6 times the PCXD. Quite high. The video benchmark 40.5 times, and the hard disk has a very high speed of 2.4 megabytes per second. Then let's check VGA speed, and the result here is 35.2 frames per second, and vid speed gives 4460. Yeah, this is very high considering that this is a 16-bit system, and the ISA bus runs on the default 7.16 MHz. You see this motherboard has no option to change the ISA clock. Now landmark 69.8, and this is speeds is 9.73, with some very high numbers on the memory bandwidth and VGA memory speed. Then here is the cast check tool. Yeah, memory speed 25.5 megabytes per second. And finally system information. As you can see in all these benchmarks, the CPU is correctly detected as a 486SX at 55 MHz. And this gives a score of 44.1. So now time for the real benchmarks, and first with option 2, 3D bench. And this gives 15 frames per second. Then we have PC player benchmark with option 5. This gives 3.4 frames per second. Then Doom minimum details. The result here is 3004 real ticks, or 24.86 frames per second. Then Doom max details, and the result is 13,468 real ticks, or okay, 5.55 frames per second. So let's now check FastDoom. This is something that a lot of people asked me to check before, but I never did. Well, this is the time. And now, first of all, display settings. Detail level is set to low. Display rendering is flat. This means that the roof and floor are simplified. Then sky rendering and visible rendering also flat. And finally I have set bus speed to low and CPU rendering as 486SX. I don't know if this makes any difference, but yeah, this is the CPU I have. Then I will reduce the screen size a bit. Okay, let's now run demo 3, and this is the full run. I will just speed up a bit the video. And yeah, this is 28.5 frames per second. Don't forget this 486SX machine, and I think this mod does not look that bad, right? Now this time I checked again with full screen and then changed the detail level to potato. Yeah, potato mode is way faster. I don't really like it, but in full screen maybe. So here we go again. I will put a full run in fast forward. And here we get a very similar 27.68. So guys, what do you think? Is this playable? What is your favorite mode? Low details and a bit smaller, or full screen potato? So that's all with the 486SX CPUs. 55 MHz stable, not bad. Also keep in mind, because the ISA bus is at the default 7 MHz, it is possible to just add the sound card here and have full audio. This will probably decrease the performance by 10%, but the result will be still good. So let's now swap the CPU with the 486SLC. This is a Cyrix core with 1 KB of level 1 cache. And let's first try 40 MHz. And yeah, this is ridiculous, but it doesn't even post. Let's now try 45 MHz. We put this there and this here. And this works. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. So guys, this is what happens when you have a crappy 2-layer board. There's so much crosstalk and so much noise on these signals that every CPU behaves a bit erratic. And you might even have situations where lower frequencies are not okay, but higher are just fine. So let's now go check the benchmarks. And first of all, check it. CPU speed gives a 36.4 times the IBM XT. Video speed gives 54.2. Both are way higher than before. But yeah, of course the hard disk benchmark is a bit lower this time because of the lower bus speed. Now VG speed 39.8 and vid speed at 4.460, very similar to before. Then here is speedsys with a super high score of 22.88. Just keep this number a bit in mind for later. The level 1 cache is not detected here because it's only 1 KB and speedsys cannot detect this small cache, but it is there and it is working. If you see the memory bandwidth, the number is a bit unreal, 120 megabytes per second. Then here is landmark, very high number, 188. And here the cache check tool. This definitely properly detects this 1 KB of cache. Then finally here system information, and maybe this is the only one that detects the CPU with the correct speed, a Cyrix 486 45 MHz. And the score here is 73.6. Keep this number also in mind. And yeah, this is faster than the 486DX at 33 MHz. Okay, now time for the real benchmarks and first 3D Mark. And the score here is 19.8 frames per second. This is very high. Now here is PC Player benchmark with the option 5. And we get a score of 5.4. And now Doom minimum details. And yeah, here we get 22.52 real ticks or 33.17 frames per second. So now time for Doom max details. And this is 82.97 or 9 frames per second. So that's all with the 486SLC. 45 MHz was the best I could do. And yeah, actually to be completely stable on all benchmarks I had even to use some Peltier to cool it down. Okay, I understand this chip is marked for a 33 MHz operation, but this still looks a bit odd, because in the end the equivalent, the 486 DLC, did easily 55 MHz on my 386DX motherboard. I think again we have problems with this 2-layer board. So now it's time to move to the 486SXLC2s. And yeah, this is the chip we had before. I had 2 of these. and both ran fine at 40, but above 40 they had problems, and even when I increased the voltage there was no difference. At best maybe they could do 42, 43, something like that. So now I also have this one. Okay, both of these are 486SXLC2s. The difference is that this one is the G50-PQ, while this is the G50WN. The difference appears only to be in the packaging. Yeah, I think these two actually have the same core, just different package. So this one, the new one, the WN, actually managed to clock a bit higher. And yeah, with this one I got 45 MHz stable easily. Again, it was not possible to go above 45, and yeah, I think it's a limitation of this motherboard. Now regarding clock doubling, something that didn't work on my previous video. Yeah, it also doesn't work here. There's nothing different between these two. The moment I enable the option, the system just freezes or restarts or something. The annoying thing here is that there is a certain video by K2s Retro Workshop where he has another motherboard with the same chipset, and his motherboard came with a 486SXLC2 and the clock doubling there works. And this is what can really drive me crazy. You see the differences between this motherboard and his motherboard are only two. One is that his motherboard has a different layout, and the other is that mine has a chipset that ends here in A4, while his motherboard ends in A5. That means he probably has a newer revision of the chipset. Now I tried to research this a bit more and I got another motherboard, this one. This has the newer revision, A5, and it is exactly the same layout as my motherboard. Okay, it's not marked by the same brand, but believe me, the layout is exactly the same. So how was this? Yeah, nothing. The clock double doesn't work. Not only that, but this board was even worse actually. It didn't accept my custom DRAMs, and it generally clocked way worse. Yeah, this is totally ridiculous. The layouts are exactly the same chipset, same BIOS, but couldn't detect my DRAM. So in the end, what's going on here? Most likely these two layer boards are all crap. There's so much noise, reflections and stuff into the signals, and this makes behavior a bit unpredictable. And it just happens that the K2s Retro Workshop motherboard has a different layout, and thus there the clock doubler is working. Of course I'm not 100% sure, but I also have a motherboard that is exactly like his motherboard. But yeah, this motherboard has some heavy battery damage. So this is a topic for another video where I will try to fully restore it and try again. So it's now time for the benchmarks. Yeah, 486SXLC at 45 MHz. That's the same Cyrix core, but this time 8 kilobytes of level 1 cache. And the result is 56.11. Video is a bit higher also. And hard disk of course is the same as before because of the 45 MHz bus. Then VGA speed 42.3 and vid speed again 4460. Now speed sees, and yeah, this looks a bit interesting. The score is exactly the same as the 486SLC, but this time we have the 8 kilobytes of the level 1 cache detected. Landmark 188 again, no difference also here. And here is the cache check tool. So here we see the 8 kilobytes of cache again, and actually the cache speed is reported a bit higher this time. It was 36.2, now it's 37.4. So not only the cache is bigger, but maybe it's a bit faster also. Then here system information, again detected correctly, 45 MHz Cyrix 486. But again in a boring way, the score is the same as the 486SLC. Now okay, time for the real benchmarks, and first 3D bench, option 2. And this is 22.9. Yeah, very nice. Then PC player benchmark with the option 5, 6.4. Then Doom minimum details, 1754 or 42.6 frames per second, very high. Now Doom max details, And this is 6492 or 11.5 frames per second. So now again time for a bonus level of FastDoom, and I will go full screen, and yeah, just low details, the rest the same. Yeah, okay, I will change the CPU to 486 DLC, and let's see. This looks very fast actually, definitely playable. Don't forget guys, 16-bit bus is a VGA default clock. 30.4 frames per second. Yeah, very nice. So that's all with the 486SXLC2. I'm a bit more satisfied this time with a stable 45 MHz. However, yeah, this still feels a bit off. I mean, this motherboard did 55 MHz with a 486SX. And this is a 50 MHz chip, and even with overvoltage here, I was unable to go any higher. So let's see, there is still a lot of room for improvement in the future. So now it's time to have a look at the full results and do some comparisons. Okay, I have here 486SX 40, 45, 55. So first of all, let's see how the 55 did. And yeah, even at 55, basically this is lower than 386DX at 40. Not by a lot, but yeah, it's lower. Keep in mind that the 386DX of course had an ISA bus at double the speed. Still, it is clear that the 486SX is losing everywhere, even in Checkit. Another thing I need to note here is that both AMD and Intel 486SXs performed exactly the same on the same frequency. So here I have not noted this as Intel and this as AMD because it is exactly the same. Now then, let's see the other three I have here. The first one is the Cyrix CPUs without the level 1 CAS enabled. Yeah, there is only one here because both the 486SLC and the 486SXLC perform exactly the same when you disable the CAS. Yeah, this just confirms that the core inside is the same. And yeah, first comparison, this versus the 486SX 45 MHz. And basically the Cyrix core is a bit slower. Not by a lot, and okay, some benchmarks are higher, some are lower. But overall, when you have the CAS disabled, these chips are very slow. Then the 486SLC, it is nearly 80% faster when you enable the CAS. And okay, the 486SXLC, it is 107% faster. Yeah, these are huge differences. Actually, the 486SXLC is more than 2 times faster than the 486SX. So finally, down here I have a comparison with K2s Retro Workshop 486SLC 50 MHz with a 20 MHz ISA bus. And this time my 486SXLC performs quite similar. Okay, I mean, I lose on 3D Bench, but I win on PC Player Benchmark and Doom. Yeah, and all this is very nice, given that I only have a 7 MHz ISA bus. As usual, you can find this file with all my measurements on the link on the description. So, that was for today's video. We tested, compared, overclock all the most common 386SX class CPUs. This felt a bit nicer than last time. I hope you also enjoyed it. The next 3-4 videos will all be on the 386SX platform. Yeah, I will try to repair the other SARC motherboard and do more tests. I also have a video to do on a mystery CPU that I think that you will really enjoy. And of course my BIOS modding tutorial. So if you don't want to miss all that, just subscribe. And yeah, see you again next time.